Good afternoon. Welcome to West Devon Licensing Subcommittee. I'll just ask the team on this side of the table to go around and introduce themselves so you know who's who. I'm Rick Cheadle. I'm the ward member for Buckingham Monacorum.
Hello, my name's Neil Jory and I am the ward member for Milton Ford Ward.
My name's Naomi Stacey and I'm the Senior Licensing Officer for West Devon Borough Council.
I'm Harry Leonis. I'm the Licensing Officer for South Hams and West Devon.
My name is Terry Southcott. I'm the ward member for Bridgestowe and member of this committee.
Cathy Hall, Democratic Services Officer at West Devon.
And online, Alan, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Alan Parr. I'm legal advisor to the committee, but I take no part in the decision making.
Thanks very much. I've drawn the short straw to chair this committee today. I'll ask members of the committee if they have any declarations of interest they wish to make.
None, Chair, thank you.
Okay, so we're here to discuss the application for a new premises licence at Uphill Farm, Walled Garden and Barn at Yelverton. I'll just explain how we're going to sort of proceed this afternoon. First, we'll have the officer's report, which outlines what is being applied for. We'll then hear, if you wish to make some representation to the committee from the applicant. I will then ask an objector if they have any questions they wish to put, having heard what the applicant said in his submission. Through me, please. We'll then hear from you if you're the objector, and again, if the applicant wishes to make any comments on what they've heard through me again. Once that's done, so we've heard from the officer, we've heard from the applicant, we've heard from the objector, we will adjourn to a room outside the chamber and discuss what we've heard, and then ask you to wait here if you will, and then we'll come back in and let you know what our decision has been. Is that clear to everyone? Okay, fine. So without further ado, we'll go on to the officer's report.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. So we're here today to consider the application for a new premises licence for Uphill Walled Garden and Barn, Uphill Farm, which is situated in a rural area approximately 2.5 miles southwest of Yelverton. The application is for recorded music, indoors and outdoors, on a Friday and Saturday from 2300 hours to 23:59. Supply of alcohol for consumption on the premises, Sunday to Thursday midday until 21:30 hours, and Friday and Saturday midday till 23:30 hours. And the opening times are Sunday to Thursday 11 till 2200, and Friday and Saturday 9 till 23:59. And a full copy of the application is at Appendix A of your papers. The premises itself is described as an events venue and course hub, which includes weddings, feast nights and private parties. The licensable activities are proposed to take place within a walled garden, which also includes a large marquee, and a copy of their plan is also at Appendix A of your papers. And there are also some photographs in your supporting documents. A map showing the location of the premises is at Appendix C of your papers. The venue has been running events up until now, including licensable activities, under temporary event notices, and they are now requesting a permanent premises licence, which would give them the flexibility to have more frequent events if they wish. You'll be aware that they were given planning permission for the venue in December 2023. While this cannot influence your decision regarding the premises licence, I can confirm that the hours and activities which have been applied for do not surpass those which have been allowed under the planning permission. Any conditions which are in place under the planning permission also remain enforceable if a premises licence were to be granted, and they would not be superseded by the granting of a premises licence. If a premises licence is granted, they would need to comply with both the planning permission and the premises licence conditions. During the consultation period, we received representations from a local resident and also from Environmental Health. Copies of those representations are Appendix C. The concerns raised relate to the prevention of public nuisance licensing objective due to the potential for noise disturbance from music and from customers. Environmental Health have since withdrawn their representation, subject to the agreement from the applicants to include 4 additional conditions. These are, number 1, that no more than 120 guests shall be present during any event, and up-to-date records of the covers paid for shall be kept and maintained and made available for inspection by the licensing authority upon request. Number 2 is that the commitments, including the lighting plan dated February 23, or succeeding revisions of the plan, if agreed in writing, shall be complied with. Number 3 is that the commitments included in the noise management plan dated April 23, or subsequent revisions, if agreed in writing, shall be complied with at all times during events at which live and amplified music is played. And finally, number 4 is that no amplified music shall be played on the premises in such a way that it is audible at the boundary of any nearby resident. And there's a definition of that, which is, in this case, audible is defined as the specific music noise level measured as LAEQ 15 minutes, which exceeds the background noise level measured LA 90 15 min prevailing at the time. So these conditions, I'm sure, would be easier to read. So they're in your papers under the additional conditions agreed with Environmental Health. And we would ask you, if you are minded to grant the application, that you also include those conditions on the premises licence. For clarification, should a premises licence be granted, which includes the sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises, as is requested here, the Live Music Act 2012 will be applicable at the premises. So that means that they would automatically be permitted to provide amplified, live or recorded music between the hours of 8 AM and 11 PM, or until the end of alcohol sales, whichever is earlier. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes have only applied to have recorded music between the hours of 2300 and midnight on a Friday and Saturday evening. Any music outside of these times would be covered by the Live Music Act should alcohol be granted. Therefore, if the premises licence is granted as applied for, any conditions relating to music will only be enforceable during those 2 hours. Since the publishing of the committee report, we have received some additional information from both the applicants and from the local resident, which are listed in our papers as additional information. And any information contained in the representations or the additional information which are not relevant to the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives cannot be taken into consideration when determining the premises licence. As a reminder, the objectives are prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. So if the applicants attending with us here today, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, and the local resident has also come to the hearing today, Mr. Passmore, and I'm sure that they will be able to advise you of their own concerns. So let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
At the moment.
No, okay. Right, well, we've heard the officer's report, which just outlines what the application is about. Now I'll provide the applicant with the opportunity to say whatever you'd like the committee to hear. I'm not going to time you, but about, or no more than about 10 minutes will be fine.
Good afternoon, Chair, Councillors. On the 12th of December, the Development Committee voted unanimously to support the planning application for events to be held at Uphill Farm. This allowed for 10 events to be held until midnight, 10 events to be held until 2200, 20 small events and 15 courses. During pre-app stages, EHO and licensing were both consulted, and with the recommendation to apply for licence on completion of our planning application. The initial feedback was that our model was small in comparison to similar venues. Our premises licence seeks to attain an alcohol licence for the sale and consumption on site until 2300 and playing pre-recorded music from 2300 to 2345. Police provided consultation to our planning application requesting that our new prep kitchen was secure and lockable. This was taken into account when fabrication of the building. Fire requested the venue had a fire risk assessment carried out. This had previously been done before we commenced the operation as a temporary events venue and is reviewed annually. Fire extinguishers and electrical equipment gets tested annually with staff briefs covering the actions on the event of a fire. Continuing the focus on public safety, we have qualified first aiders, ex-nurses, and myself as an in-date remote emergency medical technician. During our staff meetings before an event, we use the 4 objectives of licensing to structure the beginning. All staff are previously trained but reminded before events about Challenge 25 and the actions to take if someone is suspected to be underage. A camera system has been previously installed which provides adequate coverage of the grounds and parking area. The footage of the event is downloaded and saved onto an external hard drive. Our staff are briefed to be vigilant of exiting guests, ensuring any drinks are left on site. The privilege of being a remote location is that all events are essentially pre-ticketed and transport is pre-arranged, knowing that if a guest starts to walk onto the road, that our staff can usher them back into the safe location organised for taxis and coaches to collect them from. The primary concern with our planning application and this licence application is, as previously stated in the planning committee meeting, is noise nuisance and prevention of public nuisance. This has always been at the forefront of our considerations. During the last 3 years of our operation, we've been running as a temporary events venue using TENS and under the restrictions of only being able to use our land for other means other than farming and residential for 28 days per calendar year. This meant the marquee had to be put up and down every single event, meaning that we were unable to invest in specialised equipment to reduce and have full control of the output, as this takes a long time to install. Under this model of operation, we could only have 7 events per year. The code of practice for outdoor events of this number meant the legislation gave us a limit of 15 decibels above ambient. This is the equivalent of doubling the ambient background levels and more on top of that. Essentially, the volume of me talking now and a bit more. The video provided by the residents of Moray House is evidence of which it seems to be excessive in the video, but to clarify, we never broke the whole regulations of the code of practice. The code of practice states that a venue doing more than 12 events per year should not exceed that of 5 decibels above ambient. Our planning goes beyond this and has put us at ambient. To clarify what EHO stated to the councillors, yourselves, as to what that would sound like, you might hear it as a vague noise in the distance, but you wouldn't be able to stand in your porch and sing along or identify the music. This means that you'd still be able to hear something, but not identify it. As I stated in the committee meeting, the Planning Commission would allow us to invest in a highly sophisticated zone array system that we have full control of, ensuring that music would never exceed that of background. On the 7th of May, Direct Acoustics installed a new zone array system, and on that evening conducted background monitoring in order to calibrate the system the next day. On the 8th of May, the system was calibrated with background reading, and the system was tested that night. The nearest residents of the Shutters, Salton Farm and Broad Oak Farm were visited whilst music was playing, with all 3 reporting that they couldn't hear music. The sound controller provided by Direct Acoustics only allows us to turn the volume down. This allows us to control the system for other variables that might not have been present that evening, wind or low cloud cover, for example. An event was held on the 18th of May. As you can see from the letter of support from Broad Oak Farm and from Forest Lodge, the reports are positive, with both stating the lack of music heard from the event. The video footage taken by myself further proves the vast difference in the new system and the mechanisms we have in place to control noise music levels in comparison to Moray's video from last summer. The residents of Moray House mentioned the issue with reporting complaints to the venue. These residents both have Charlotte's and my number. The last time we spoke regarding an issue was in 2022, which consisted of a letter and a 40-minute conversation over the phone to outline our systems in place. This being the only communication for them which was recorded with our noise management logs and deemed resolved, as there was no further communication from the residents or contact from EHO. They mentioned that another resident recently contacted us via text message. This, however, was via Google Map chat, which is not a monitored system. Even though we have a contact number on Google. As a result of this, with consultation with EHO, a new system is in the process of being implemented in order to swiftly deal with issues that may arise during an event. A new mobile and contact number for the noise management officer, myself, has been purchased, and we are waiting for the delivery. Once this has been received, all nearby residents will receive a letter outlining the procedure to contact us during an event. If contacted, I will attend the residence and take immediate noise level reading, observation and video recordings. If on the unlikely event we are breaching our permitted level, the system can be turned down remotely. Groups of people walking up the lane to get to a pre-arranged coach mentioned within the representation has already been addressed. We spoke to the company last year that provided the coach, and they have amended the notes on our account that they are only allowed to send the smaller 33-seat coaches so that they can come directly to the farm and not shuttle passengers to request them to walk to a location to meet them. The representation also provides other venues that have certain limitations on music. It's worth noting that these venues provide multiple weddings per week, often up to 200 per year. With most of the limitations being after 2200, our venue only seeks to have 10 after 2200. However, bear in mind that our condition does not permit amplified music above ambient, which in effect means there will be no music nuisance. The new mechanisms we have in place since granting of our planning have vastly changed how we operate. Anyone providing amplified music at the venue is sent the zone array fact sheet, ensuring they have full understanding of how the system works and what the limitations are. We are fully invested into providing a silent stage, recently purchasing an electronic drum kit, meaning that the main issue with bands has now been overcome, as the kit has to be played through the zone array. In-ear monitoring systems are mandatory for bands to use. Due to the severe drop-off in volume from the dance floor, musicians find it hard to connect with their music, a negative for bands wanting to play at the venue, but it prevents stage monitoring speakers. A demonstration of our processes, conditions, and willingness to improve resulted in EHO withdrawing their representation to this application, along with positive feedback from our nearest neighbours, all providing evidence that we are on the right track, having vastly improved how we used to operate. Having operated for the last 3 years under temporary events notices without refusal from licensing, we therefore believe that we have been and are adhering to all 4 licensing objectives. Thank you for your time regarding this application. I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much. Very clear. Members of the committee, have you got any questions for the applicant?
I have a question, Chair. I'm assuming that most of the larger events that you're running are weddings. Weddings tend to start a bit earlier, perhaps, in the day than other social events might, and so the sort of business end, if I can put it that way, tends to be completed relatively early. Can you tell me why you think it's important to you and your business that you're allowed the extension to play music until midnight on those days, or have I got the wrong end of that particular stick?
Hi. Sorry, I'm the one who organises the weddings, so it's very good to come from me. So I think, as we all know, the business end of stuff, the marriage and everything happens in the day, and our venue's very, very good for the sort of outdoor canapes and all that sort of stuff. However, I think realistically, everybody knows that weddings, people want the evening party, and the sort of the market, to be able to have a market for a wedding to stop off would just completely, I think, crush our business, really. That's why we put in for only 10, because, that's, people want that. It's all about customers, what they want, and I think weddings are, people want the evening fun bit, but that's why we put the restrictions on no live music after 11, and the music goes down after 11 as well. So even though we say we want it to midnight, the live music stops at 11. Also, they might have evening guests coming. It's not always, you can't always afford to feed all of the guests. So obviously the evening guests come in and they, can't expect them to be 7 and be gone in 2 hours sort of thing. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, yes, thank you.
Okay, I just got one question, and I'm sure, I feel sure I'll know the answer, you'll know the answer to this. It is quite a sort of confusing business, licensing and planning, but the two are completely separate, but there are connections between the two. You do understand, I'm sure, that any flexibility which you get over licensing are in a sense constrained by the conditions of planning. We're not here to talk about the planning application, but the planning application does impose conditions upon you. The licensing the licensing agreement, were you to get one, does not give you flexibility beyond the constraints implied by the planning application. You do understand that, don't you? Yep.
I understand.
Right, I'll now ask Mr. Passmore whether he's got any questions on the basis of what you've just heard from the applicant. You will, okay, so you know specific ones at this stage? Okay, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for that. So we'll now go on to Mr. Passmore, and you too have got sort of around about 10 minutes. If you could say what you've got to say within that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Chair and councillors, my name is Nigel Passmore. I live at Moray House, which is approximately 250 metres south-southeast of the event centre where the marquee is located at Uphill Farm. Whilst discussing this, I do accept that they have planning consent, was approved and all the rest of it. My comments are very much involved on the activities that would take place at their event centre, primarily noise, time and traffic, which by extending their licensing period from 11 o'clock to midnight implicates us further as residents within the Tamar Valley National Landscape, where we are a very tranquil setting. Initially, obviously, we understand that there are 20 events that are planned on a Friday or a Saturday night. Then they're saying that they're going to do 10 events 10 o'clock in the evening and 10 events till midnight, effectively, is what they're actually saying. We are very concerned about who monitors that. You know, who's actually going to monitor the fact that which events go to midnight, which events go to 10 o'clock. You know, the local authority aren't going to monitor it, the police aren't going to monitor it. You know, we don't know whether this is a midnight event or a 10 o'clock event, or do we start counting them? Do we chalk them off on a board as to, like, you know, like with it, do we stay awake to midnight and count that one? Or do we, you know, we've got no way of monitoring. There's no way of monitoring. This is just purely self. So we're going to deem that all events at the present moment in time, if they get granted this licence, will run till about 11 o'clock unless they get an extension to go to midnight. Now, this gives concern to us on their licence in the sense that they run their events primarily between mid-May and mid-September based on the light temperature in the UK and what is the general, on the basis that they are an outdoor venue, not an indoor venue. That means that basically every weekend, if they're successful, we've got an event at Uphill Farm. Every weekend throughout the summer, on either a Friday or Saturday night, we've got an event there. This is why primarily we're concerned. So our primary concern, first and foremost, is the noise. The noise is dealt with under planning, and under clause 12 of their planning application, no amplified music shall be played on the premises in such way it's audible. At the planning, Janet Wallace did give a description of what this means. She said the background noise is 25 decibels, and basically if it peaks above this within the sort of things within the gardens of our premises, that basically they're breaking their audible thing. Now, obviously, they are very much taken by the company that have told them that they've got this magic machine that's going to sort of get rid of all the noise outside. On the first event, on May the 18th, I wasn't actually there, so I can't personally comment on it, but our housekeeper heard it. Mr. Greeno at Covert House sent them a message on text at 11:29. And from Uphill Farm was typical response in 1 hour. Hi, how can I help you? Comes to Mr. Greeno. Please turn the music down as promised. He didn't get a response, and I believe Mr. Greeno is going to follow this up with an actual complaint to West Devon about the noise.
So may I just stop you there? You should make representations on your behalf only and not involve other third parties which aren't here and don't give the other side the opportunity to ask questions about, nor does the committee have the opportunity to clarify matters which you may be speaking. So if you could please just...
My apologies.
Keep your representations to yourself. Thank you.
Okay, my apologies. Okay, is it like from it? So just rolling on the noise sort of thing with it and things like that from it, we are very much reliant on, I mean, obviously the video that I took last year, where we can all clearly hear all the lyrics of the song, was just a video that I was advised to by the Environment and Health to do it. That was probably the third complaint that we'd had to make about loud music at the particular venue. Now, we're not trying to close the venue down, we're just saying we don't want to hear it, like with it. And what our concern is that the system that they've got is that if this has been heard by other people, and there are other people who've basically told me that they've heard it, and that there is a music or an audible record sheet which has been posted by the applicant, why does their sheet not show that the music's not there? Certainly when the applicant came around to test his system, the two people who've ever passed any complaint, ourselves and COVID House, were never consulted, never asked about, can we hear the music or anything of that sort of thing with it from that sort of side of it, which we found quite unusual, with it, but possibly because we've been complainers before, with it. The situation with the music is that effectively we have to become the music police. We have to be the ones who do the recordings. We have to be doing it because the local authority doesn't have the manpower or the budget to have somebody sat outside Uphill Farm by our properties during the course of the events. We don't even know when the events are on. There's no posting of what dates they're on. There's nothing like that. We can only guess by the cattle grid, traffic going over the cattle grid, that something's going on that night. Because now the marquee is up all the time. We used to know because it used to have to be erected and taken down within their temporary events notice. So we've got no idea what's going on down there. It's a walled garden. We can't see in how many people are there, what type of event it is. Is it an 11 o'clock event? Is it a 10 o'clock event? Is it a small event? So we have no control as residents within the area about what's going on. And we don't see how the applicant has made any effort to be able to let residents know about what events are on, what weekends, etc., etc. Time. Why midnight? I agree with the councillor. Why midnight? What is wrong with 11 o'clock, like normal places are? Most places that we sort of research that are outdoors have a 10 o'clock restriction. Basically, 10 o'clock, time's out, children have got to be in bed. You can't close your windows in the summertime if it's a hot evening. You've got to close your windows because 1, you don't want to listen to the music. 2, you don't want to listen to people singing along. 3, you don't want to listen to cars going over cattle grids. Why 12 o'clock? Why midnight? They don't need that extra hour. It's just purely to sell more alcohol. If we sell more alcohol, people tend to get louder at events. More of a problem for us as residents, with it. Traffic. If the events are finishing at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, as their licence with application at the moment, it would generally mean that sort of with drinking up time and people saying cheerio to each other after a party and all the rest of it with it, we're going to see vehicles leaving the Uphill Farm and coming up past where we live, over the cattle grid, which is right outside our property. If it's at 10 o'clock, it's going to be like 10:30, 11:15. If it's 11 o'clock, it's going to be sort of sometime around 11:30, 11:45. If it's a midnight licence, we've got people driving over our cattle grid as late as 1:45 in the morning. Now that means that basically we cannot shut, we're going to have to keep all our windows on our western elevation of our property closed all the time to avoid that sort of noise. Now we've got taxis coming from town down the lane to pick people up. We've got minibuses coming down the lane to pick people up. We've got cars leaving the venue to go from it. Now, we accept that there is a traffic plan in place. The last buses leave late. Nobody's going to be catching a bus to and fro to Uphill Farm. Nobody's going to be riding a pedal bike to a wedding venue in their finery and all the rest of it with it. So primary people are coming by private car and or taxi and or minibus, from it. And we're concerned. We're concerned about the noise that generates. It is a very, very quiet lane. For those that haven't seen it, I think, those that have seen it will realise it's a very, very quiet lane. So obviously we're concerned about that. I mean, obviously, this is awkward for us. I put into that sort of side of it with it. We do feel, however, and also talking to our neighbours about it, that we've been given a bit of a fait accompli, with it. And we are hoping that the so-called noise thing will not lead to any problems or anything else like that. However, as residents, we don't really feel that we'll be conducting discussions with the applicant about whether we think it's too noisy or not. We think we'll be conducting that with the environment health officers.
So, again, can your representations only, please, not residents in the plural. It's only your representations that should be made, sir.
Okay. We, my wife and I, will be, basically going through the environment health officers, because, we don't want that dialogue with the applicant. It's like, and so, the noise pollution that we feel is going to happen. We're told by experts. I've had SB Consulting talk to me. They tell me it's impossible. There isn't a system in an outside venue that will ever be able to stop the noise. Now, the people who sell the equipment and all the rest of it aren't going to admit that it goes wrong, and most of this installations and all the rest of it are either indoor locations or outdoor tents which have got an insulated lining fitted to them as well, which this company provides as well. So our general thought is that if it is approved to go on beyond 11 o'clock to midnight, we are left with no choice but to invest in a CCTV and noise monitoring system which will be erected on our property by SB Consulting, and it will be there will be both digital and visual and sound recording carried out permanently on both the lane and the venue to make sure that they adhere to their lighting plan, their travel plan, their noise plan, and condition 12, that they're not going beyond the ambient from it. Now, our general belief is, as a resident, we shouldn't have to go that far. So where we sort of stand with it is that we think that this needs to tiptoe along and go along slowly and see how they get on with their venue, to see if they do meet the sort of what they've said they can do in their plans. But let's keep it back to a sensible time to start with. And if we get through the first season without problems and all the rest of it with it, then I won't be sat here complaining if at that stage they ask for a later license, because they won't have caused a problem to any of us. But our primary concern is we've got no history of it, or the history we have got that was prior to them getting planning permission did cause us problems. We did have to object. We have produced video evidence of what the issues were.
Okay, thank you very much. Members of the committee, have you got any questions?
None that I can think of at this precise moment.
And from the applicant's point of view, is there anything you've heard that you wish to ask a question about through me, if you could? Or not? Okay, thank you very much. That being the case, we will now adjourn. Stay here. We'll adjourn and come back and let you know what we think. Thanks very much. Okay, we're back on live streaming. Thank you for waiting. We've considered all that we've heard today and all that has been sent to us beforehand, and our decision is as follows. Our decision is to grant the application as submitted. Of the 4 licensing objectives, we conclude that the only possible consideration is the prevention of public nuisance. We believe that the constraints already imposed are sufficiently robust, if adhered to. If evidence comes to light that the conditions agreed to by you and environmental health are not being met, the licence can be reviewed. Thank you very much.
Yeah, understand. Thank you very much.
That concludes our committee.